It was the summer of 1965, the summer of LSD, raising one's consciousness. Satisfaction had just hit the airwaves. Mr. Tambourine Man, Wooly Bully, and Lyndon Johnson had started bombing North Vietnam. And of course, the beginning of free love. Okay, where I'm at, for you fans of the great Lizard King, Ray Manzarek and the Doors, I'm here at the stomping grounds of Jim Morrison and Ray Manzarek that summer of 1965. Okay, before I take you to where Jim Morrison lived with Ray Manzarek and Dorothy Fujikawa, I want you fans all over the world to see exactly where Olivia's Soul Kitchen was, which was a very, very inexpensive, very delicious place to eat for UCLA film students, which incidentally, that's where Linda Ronstadt was discovered. And I'm going to take you to where it was at. Now, all over the blogosphere, for whatever reason, they always put 2615. 2615 is over there where that surf shop was, or is rather. And right now the address is 2619, but back then it was 2615, and across the street at 2618 was Olivia's Soul Kitchen. So let me zoom in on the corner. Okay, that's where the blogosphere says Olivia's Soul Kitchen was. It wasn't. It was right here where the Santa Monica Heritage Museum was placed in 1970, right after they tore out all of old Venice and put all this junk right here, all this postmodern crap. 1965, this area was still bohemian. It was a hippie, beatnik enclave. In fact, the Santa Monica Library right there, I'm pretty certain that Jim and Ray, that summer of 1965, if they couldn't find a book at a used bookstore, which this place at that time, it was all bookstores, coffee shops, jazz clubs, just a completely cheap, inexpensive place to live. I'm sure that they would have gone to that library and checked out books. But I'm going to take you fans of the Lizard King and Ray Manzarek, I'm going to take you in a little bit roundabout way of Jim Morrison's stomping grounds that summer of 1965, where serendipitously he came upon Ray Manzarek, in that direction right there. And I'll take you fans exactly where they met, or approximately at least. But you have to remember, in that summer, the reason, I think, in my opinion, the reason why they had that carnivalesque type of music that they organically created to go along with Jim's compositions is because there was a place called the Pacific Ocean Park Pier, and it was an amusement park. In fact, that's where they had the Aragon Ballroom, where Lawrence Welk performed in the 50s, and which later became the Cheetah Club in 1967, where incidentally, in rock and roll history, that's where Jim Morrison took the first nosedive off the stage into the audience below, which became de rigueur later on. Okay, so let's go. Let's take a little bit roundabout way. Okay, pretty much this place right now, it's no longer a bohemian environment. It's actually a trust fund baby's heaven, or rather nightmare, however you want to put it. It would have been filled, like I said, with jazz clubs galore, used bookstores. Okay, let's go. I'm going to take you fans now to the corner where Jim Morrison got the inspiration for Soul Kitchen. So you fans, when you come from all over the world, it was right here, which was actually, they said it was torn out in 1970. Olivia's Soul Kitchen, and then they put this incongruous museum. I guess it was probably one of the Victorian mansions that they were tearing out in that direction. They decided to use it as a museum. But all over the blogosphere, they always say, oh, it's right there in 2619 right there, or 2615, which now it's 2619, but they say it was there. But I've done my research for you fans of the Lizard King. This is where the Soul Food Kitchen was. And okay, let's take a right. And this is where Jim got that inspiration for those fantastic lyrics. The cars crawl past, all stuffed with eyes. Street lights share their hollow glow. Your brain seems bruised with numb surprise. Still one place to go. Still one place to go. Let me sleep all night in your soul kitchen. Okay, well, sorry about that. Okay, I couldn't help it. Okay, let's make a little U-turn right here. As you can see, you'd probably have to make $1 million a year to live here. The rents are prohibitive on steroids, and like I said, it was a bohemian, really cheap environment to live. It was alternative on steroids. Today there's no alternativeness about it. It's just rich and famous and their children that live here, and Jim and Ray, they wouldn't have recognized it if they came back miraculously, of course. I don't even recognize it, because in the 70s it didn't even look like this. It was just a rundown, dilapidated environment. Okay, so getting back to that summer, Jim had graduated from UCLA. Ray also. They were confused. They didn't know what to do with their lives. And shoot forward to July of 1965. Ray's laying on the beach right there, where I'm going to take you fans of Ray Manzarek and the Lizard King, and who pops out of the water and cutoffs. The young fledgling Lizard King, Jim. And he couldn't believe it, you know, synchronistically, serendipitously. Ray goes, Jim, what are you doing here, man? He goes, oh, I'm living on Dennis Jacobs' roof, and I'm writing songs and taking LSD, man, every day, and I'm not eating. He had lost 35 pounds in the 6 weeks that Ray said he hadn't seen him. He said he looked like a Greek god, walked off a pedestal in a museum in Greece. Okay, anyway, he said, well, what do you got, man? What are you writing? He goes, oh, I got this song called Moonlight Drive. And he wrote Summer's Almost Gone, and I Looked at You, and then End of the Night. Those are the songs. And where I'm turning right now for you fans, this is Navy Street right here. And I just want to say that at the end there, at the end of the street, fronting Ocean Park walkway, is where Club Cheetah was, which was formerly the Aragon Ballroom, where incidentally Lawrence Welk, he played there in the 50s, and then they started televising his show up until 1955, until he moved to Hollywood. What I wanted to do for you fans, because that's where the Club Cheetah was, right there where Jim performed, and I thought this would be a great thing in the memory of the Lizard King himself. Possibly a memory from some young kid at the time, now an old man. He said that's what Jim was doing. He was laying on that stage at the Club Cheetah. Okay, that's great, man. Fantastic. We'll never forget you, Jim, wherever you're at. Okay, let's go. Okay, all this area right here would have been an amusement park, sideshows, attractions. All this stuff right here was built in the 80s, I remember. And some of the old buildings are here, of course. And this is incidentally also Dennis Hopper's stomping grounds. Okay, so let's go. Now before I go and I take you to where Ray lived with Dorothy Fujikawa and Jim, in that summer of 1965. I want to rectify a mistake all over the blogosphere. Now, I don't know if it's intentional, unintentional, or maybe just pure ass magic, man. M-A-G-I-K, obfuscating on purpose, goofing up the energy where musical history took place. For whatever reason, they always say Jim, Ray, and Dorothy lived at 147 Fraser. They did not live at 147 Fraser. They lived at 154. I want the world to know. I want the fans of the Lizard King and Ray Manzarek, who incidentally would have been 77 this coming February, and incidentally Jim, this coming December 8th, would have been 73 years old. I want to rectify that mistake, intentionally or unintentionally. For whatever reason, they put the wrong address to goof up the energy, maybe, I don't know, the powers that be. So I want to rectify that mistake, that obfuscation for you fans all over the world. And the way I found it is in 2003, Ray Manzarek, he released Evergreen and Induction, his UCLA student films, and as an extra, he filmed where he lived, and it was at 154. So, and I incidentally, I met Ray. He had just written a book called Poet in Exile, and he was doing a book signing at the Barnes & Noble on the 3rd Street Promenade in downtown Santa Monica. He had to be, I'd say Ray must have been about 6'3". Nice guy, man. The way he is in person, I mean, he's the same way he is on films, and you saw him ever since he was performing with the Doors. Okay, we're gonna go. This is the way old Bohemian Venice would have looked like. They said Ray paid $75 a month with Dorothy, and sadly they tore all these buildings out right here in this section. And this is what Ray and Jim would have seen that summer of '65. And in fact, like I said, they were paying $75 a month, and this is where Ray met Jim that summer. And they were renting it from a guy named Oscar. Ray used to call him old arthritic Oscar. And in fact, the Jim, when he moved here to this apartment where I'm going to take you fans, Ray and Dorothy, they gave Jim the room because he had an electric blanket and the heater was in the front room. And that was July of '65. And then by the time they got thrown out, which was kind of ironic because they got thrown out by Oscar because Ray had let an army buddy of his name, Britt Leach, move in, who became a character actor. And you can see him on Going South and Father of the Bride, and he's been around for years on TV shows. Anyway, Oscar says, I want you bunch out of there. I rented to 2 people, he told he told Ray. And so they all had to leave. There were 4 of them, which, again, another factoid, Robbie ended up renting this apartment. So okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take you to that apartment, but first, before I do that, for you fans, I'm gonna take you to where the first supermodel, if you will, in 1972, where she died of an overdose from phenobarbital, Margot Hemingway at 139 Fraser. And then I'll show you the mistake where they always say 147. And I'll show you that apartment. And I'm on Fraser, as you can see. And that's where Ray and Jim met. And this is where they hung out through that whole summer of 1965. That summer of the raising of consciousness from LSD, of course, and psilocybin and mescaline. Okay, well, let's go here. Let's walk up here. As you can see, it's still old Venice. Okay, here you go. Right here where Margot Hemingway was found dead of an overdose. right here. 139. She was found dead. But here's the mistake all over the blogosphere. I want to rectify it for all you fans of the